Hey, what's up? What's going on out there? I was checking out Brandon Tatum's channel, and for those of you who don't know who Brandon Tatum is, he's a conservative so-called black guy that has some interesting takes on some things sometimes, and I check him out from here from time to time. But he's going to be talking about Jillian Michaels, who was on CNN, and they were talking about quote unquote woke ideologies in the Smithsonian and things like that. And this part that I'm going to comment on, he was talking about slavery in America. Well, he's making comments about what she said. And I just thought it was interesting because it shows the lack of historical knowledge that people have in general, honestly. But I'm going to let the video play and give my 1-2.
Jillian Michaels is 100% correct in what she's saying, and they're gaslighting her because the conversation when we started the video was very, very clear. She's saying that there's things in the Smithsonian that are depicting history in a disingenuous and even some cases fraudulent way. Slavery.
Well, I'm going to say this before he continues. I've been to the Smithsonian, a bunch of them. It's some good. I will say some great material in there. Who knows if some of it's true, some of it's false? Because some of the real stuff they probably don't even show you. They got probably buried deep in museum archives and things like that. But for the most part, it's really nice. They're really nice. They're laid out really really well. But as far as like accuracy, you might have to take some stuff with a grain of salt.
Had nothing to do with race. It was available cheap labor. That's why you see Africans owning Africans, selling them all across the world.
Well, to his point too, it didn't start off as a quote unquote racial thing. When it started off, you had indentured servitude from all types of people, slavery, things of that nature. It didn't become racialized until maybe between mid 1700s to the maybe mid to late, early to mid 1700s, maybe like 1730s, 40s, around that time that it really became racialized. And the racial component was very evident through laws and through by certain acts.
Majority of the slaves were in South America.
That's another thing he said too. He said something quite interesting too. A lot of people don't know. The majority of slaves were in Brazil. It wasn't a lot of slaves in I'm just going to use North America. It wasn't a lot of slaves in North America. So when I think back on why the so-called black people are so populous here, you have to ask yourself, were there people here before slaves came over here? And if you do any type of research or digging or anything like that, especially in this day and age, you'll find out, do archaeological research and things like that, that it was people of so-called color. But besides I would guess the standard Native American Indian that you would see depicted, that's been depicted. So that's an interesting thing too. And like I said, like do some research. Brazil carried the most or had the most amount of slaves. Like if you go back and you look at some historical context with slave voyages and see how many slaves were actually brought from the continent of Africa over to North America, the number wasn't high at all. And then if you look at voyages well, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here. I'm gonna try to keep the main thing, but I'm just gonna say a piece of this. A lot of so-called black people didn't come from Africa. Some of them came from Europe. They got kicked out of Europe, but that's another topic for another day. But to keep the main thing, a lot of slaves weren't brought to North America. And to think that the numbers of so-called black people would be so high here, and especially the conditions in which slaves lived, you wouldn't think that people, so-called black people would be so populous in those conditions. So that gives you the like kind of inkling to be like, well, maybe they were already here. So
wasn't even in America. And then roughly 2%, I've seen lower numbers than 2% of white people in America own slaves. So the majority, 98% of white people didn't even own a single slave.
All right. And that's the last point I wanted to hit on with this percentage of slave ownership. And I've seen this number go down drastically since forever. Since I can remember, it was like 5, 6, then it went to 4, 2. In 5 years, it's going to be 0.01 or something crazy like that, some crazy number. But either way, like, I don't know where they found a statistic for this to get this 2% number. Because when I think about it, and I'll just use the state of Georgia, for example, I'll say if 50% or 40% of the people in Georgia own slaves, are they going by households or are they going by males? Like, what are they going by? Because if they're just going by a single person, of course that number is going to be lower. And if they're going by households, that number is, percent-wise, as far as population, is going to be way higher. So that's something else to think about in itself. Like, I don't know where these numbers come from. And like I said, this number is always fluctuating or going down. And it's just crazy as hell to me. But yeah, that's my 1-2 on it. Leave your commentary. Let me know what you think.